Okay, so yeah, that's exactly what
Yeah.
it is.
When I see her here.
Audio might be working, but for some reason I can't get video. The camera's just not sending video.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yep, via the LMS system. All members of the train and operators of the fleet of car cameras and ARPs via the learning management system.
Okay, yeah, they're just reading it. Yeah, we don't.
Okay, I was just responding.
I mean, because there's no point in us approving that because the GPO is the GPO. And they're just reading it and then.
It is on.
The audio is, but not the, you can see pictures? That's
Oh, yeah,
weird.
there
It's
you
The
not,
whole conversation is online right
it's not showing me a picture, so that's bizarre, but okay.
We'll pick our mics up.
Yeah, I believe you, I see it.
So it's working. So it's just
Yeah, I have
started.
no, it typically shows me as
Well, that's
screen,
weird.
but
I'm just gonna say. Well, thanks for double
It's
checking.
started off as weird.
Yeah.
Oh,
On
okay.
Thursday.
The coming Thursday, right?
Yeah, this coming Thursday. Yeah.
all right, John, or whenever you're ready then.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, hello everybody. This is just to kind of get us all on the same page. We are not having a formal meeting. This is just a group of commissioners getting together to do some planning for some work, and then we'll be presenting some information at the full commission meeting on Wednesday. But just so that there can be as much community involvement as possible and full transparency, we are streaming it. And so it's not going to be quite as facilitated quite as formally. Yeah, so today we are getting together to talk about the command staff interview process and what the CPC process will look like to fulfill our charter, our duty under the charter, which is to make recommendation to the mayor and the safety director on commander appointments. So I think that unless there's any opposition, maybe let's start with public comment. Sound good? Okay. Any comments from the public? Great. And while we're getting the mic out, let's just go around and say who we are so that for the record. So Chandra Benito.
Hello, my name is Adriana Rodriguez.
I am John Adams.
Alana Garrett Ferguson. Thank you. Okay. Kayla, take it away.
Okay, is this on? It's on here. I'm Kayla. Okay, so looking forward to this meeting. I was talking with Richard Jackson earlier, and we felt like this is like a very crucially important part of the job. And it seems like, there's the recommendations of these commander positions, and then they're separately trying to understand the policy of the process itself for evaluating these positions and hiring for these positions, and the process for all those things. So my thought on it, I guess, is Sergeant Jackson wanted to be here but couldn't make it, and so it's a kind of an example of like, this is a big thing, and I think that having it requires, I think, a decent amount of public attention, and if people want to be providing input, especially different experts and things of that nature. And so my thought was, having some sort of acting, kind of to have like a temporary stopgap for this thing right now, to make sure that you guys are fulfilling, the needs of what you need to be doing, but to have these commanders kind of be in more of an acting role, and then create a work group or something, or maybe open a position for a consultant to come in and be able to offer their expertise on this sort of matter and other things as well, but to speak to the evaluations process and other elements of the policy for understanding how these commanders are both hired, but also then how they are evaluated like during their time. So and to have that be something that maybe has a time frame on it, to establish that policy through the policy committee, And yeah, so it sounds like you guys are moving some things around. So I don't know how, I mean, part of the suggestion, it'll fit in certain places, maybe not others. And it sounds like you're kind of adopting some of this stuff already. So I just wanted to make that comment. And yeah, that this is a really important thing that, and I'm glad that you guys are doing it.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
This is Lou, and I have some other ideas about this whole thing. Right now, the reason we have this discussion is because the commander for District 4 is the one we would need to fill up the vacancy, correct?
There's two vacancies.
Right, 2 vacancies. Now, it's important that we will establish a newer process like this for the community to participate. It's a good thing. However, sometimes we found out the police department, the way they change their personnel, it could be a commander from a particular district being transferred to another one, then they will get somebody new, either within the police force from the lower rank to promote, or they hire from outside, somebody new to the community. So I really don't know if this will be a very good practice when it's District 4's vacancies needs to be filled, and we only target the community members in District 4, because the changes can be a different ways. It can happen in different ways. So it seems like sometimes you cannot predict only District 4, the people living in District 4 or working in District 4 will be the only ones affected. So have you thought about making the community input process, for example, community meeting, to be on a bigger scale or to have a more session? Just in case later, eventually, it will be, just hypothetically, District X, that commander will be moved to District 4, and another district, that commander will move to the other district, and that third one, they open it up to hire somebody from outside from scratch. In that case, it's a series of, I hope it's not unfortunate event, but I think we should think ahead about this kind of situation. Please don't think having a community meeting only for that particular district is the way to go. That's what I mean. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our community members for your public comment and for joining us today. So to get started, what I kind of wanted to do was to start by recapping what has happened so far. And, please feel free to jump in and help me, especially Co-Chair Adams, as I think you have had a little bit more context than I have. And so essentially on October 30th, there was a divisional notice that was sent out that about openings for command staff, and the 2 openings were 4th District Commander and then the Bureau of Special Services. So, and then I believe it was in the early February that the announcement was made of the commander selection. Dr. Adams, is that correct?
So October 2023.
2023, yeah.
Both were posted in October.
Yep, in a divisional notice, and we have a copy of it here. So, and it sounds like what the process was internally was that they had a hiring committee, and that they reviewed the candidates and held interviews and then made recommendations to the mayor and the director of public safety. And then those, they made their selection, the mayor and the director of public safety, and then that was sent out. And then obviously the commission submitted a letter. Thank you to Dr. Adams for your work on that. Saying that, under the charter, we are supposed to have involvement in the process through making a recommendation. So we were not kind of privy to what was happening. And so now why we are meeting and what we are trying to do is to firstly and primarily or principally to begin, we need to fulfill our charter duty, which is to make a recommendation to the safety director and the mayor on which candidates should be selected. Additionally, the charter also says that we should be including the community through that. So I'm just going to read from the charter. What is that? Oh, that right there. Thank you.
Oh, that's not the charter section. We just have one sentence in 115.5 that says we will make recommendations.
Okay, yeah. And include the community. So that is where we are at. So part of this discussion is going to be what process do we go through as the commission in order to make that recommendation. And then the second piece, which, I think was eliminated also by our great public comment, is that I think that we are going to learn some things about this commander selection process that we will want to comment on, make recommendations around, and those findings might result in us requesting that other committees, perhaps the policy committee, look at creating some GPOs so that we can make sure that we have a fair, transparent, and successful process for how commanders are promoted. So the other thing, the other kind of piece of context that I wanted to share is that there is a promotions section. The place where promotions are addressed in the consent decree, which is in section 2 on section 3.317 and 318. And I'm just going to read it for the record. It says, promotions, the city will develop and implement fair and consistent promotion practices that comport with the requirements of this agreement and result in the promotion of officers who are effective and professional. Section 318, and determining whether the officer is likely to be effective and appropriate for the position to which he or she is being considered for promotion, the appointing authority will consider the following factors where relevant. A, effective use of community and problem-oriented policing strategies. B, the number and circumstances of uses of force. C, an officer's service as an FTO or field training sergeant. D, disciplinary record. E, problem-solving skills. F, interpersonal skills. G, support for departmental integrity measures. And H, pending disciplinary processes. So, some of the materials that we have received include the resumes of all of the applicants, and then also the command staff interview questions. And so, yeah, is there any comments on what we sent in reviewing all of these materials? I think that one thing that has already been brought up.
Here's your sentence for 115.5, and there is one provision in 116 that covers the mayor's appointment of commander. So
Okay. Also, for context in the record, in Charter Section 116, it says the commanders of police shall be appointed by the mayor from the division of police, or they may be persons appointed from outside the division who shall have had training and experience in law enforcement, and they shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor. And then the quote from 115.5 says that our duty of interviewing and recommending candidates for police commander and inspector general to the mayor. So at the end of the day, the mayor can use his or her discretion to select the commanders, but we should be involved in the process to be able to interview and make a recommendation. So at this point, they've already gone through the entire hiring process. So we are kind of coming in after the fact to review those materials and try to also, we're going to have a proposal discussion from Shelley about how we can conduct the interview and the community engagement process, which we'll get to in just a second. And then make our recommendation. And so I think that we are hoping to complete this process in 30 days, if possible. And well, I guess that's kind of up for discussion, but I think that's kind of been what people have been talking about so far, just because, the positions are vacant right now. They're in interim status, yeah. And then I think that we will also be working to, I would suggest that we put together a report based on what we see in in going through this process, and then also make recommendations to the commission on what should be done in terms of next steps in updating, improving, and going deeper into this work. So go ahead. Do you and Shelley want to just come sit at the table?
Come on up to the table.
Yeah, come to the table.
Hey everybody, Martin here, attorney for the CPC through the Law Department in the City of Cleveland. Just want to do a couple of shameless plugs for what I think would make this process easier as we move forward. And these are just suggestions, they're not requirements by any means. Creating a hiring committee for every single position that suddenly comes under the shoulders of the CPC to review every time is a little much, especially when we're having just one monthly meeting. They can spring these positions on us at any time. And if you're looking for a 30-day turnaround, having to create a new committee every time one comes in front of you is not really the best practice. So I would recommend creating a hiring committee at the March meeting that would be open for all external positions that may be coming into the CPC's jurisdiction, and staffing that committee, and then having that committee later be certified by the rules committee, because I know you just did an update to, I forget the actual rule, but yes, I don't know if that one's been 100% approved by the rules committee. It was?
No.
No, was
Wait,
it?
no.
I don't think it was.
We can still update 1.4.5.
Yeah, so I would recommend including a hiring committee in the committee section of the manual, so that way we can detail the duties of the committee and then have it staffed, so that way it can be standing. Obviously, if there is nothing to review during those months, it can remain inactive, but having to reopen it is a pain. With that being said, on this group of commissioners that is together here talking, this is not the official committee, right, by any means. So you would also want to make it clear at the next March CPC meeting that you're looking to open a committee to staff it with the commissioners that are either here today or whatever, to sort of then be allowed to bring recommendations to the full commission on that behalf, right? Speaking as the committee voice.
Yeah.
The last thing that I had on my laundry list of things I wanted to bring up for this meeting was the public document request time turnaround. Anyone from I think how the current handbook is structured, Jason, is that any commissioner through the executive director can request perform a public document request, right? Or request for documents.
Yeah, through the ED, so.
Right. So if you all don't have the documents you need to perform the work you need to do, you better start getting on that document request ASAP, because it's going to take, especially if you need disciplinary records, it's going to take a lot of time for those redactions to take place. So, mark that on your list of things to discuss today. If you can work that in your timeline or process or whatever. Okay.
Thank you so much. Great feedback. I guess on that note, can we go ahead?
I had a question about the document. So because I just looked it up, we do have some of the disciplinary records. I just wanted to know, is that all the ones that we have for the redacted file that we got today? And do we also have I don't believe we have number or circumstances of uses of force for any of these current officers in particular. And so I would want to request that one of us can email interim Goodrick for him to follow up with the appropriate office to get those, and just to make sure that everyone that's sitting at file, because I think it's only 13 disciplinary files that I just checked that we have. And so in this redacted file, if it's only 13, it's fine. But if it's like 20, I just want to make sure we have everything there. But that was what I wanted to kind of chime in.
Yeah, thank you. Please.
So I just want to follow up with that. So I had some questions about the disciplinary files that we received. So on 3/14, I sent an email to Commander Carney inquiring about the discrepancy that there were 22 candidates, yet we only received disciplinary files on 8 candidates. So I did ask him, and one of the more glaring absence of records was one of the commanders that was actually appointed, that there were no disciplinary records for them. So I inquired about that, and the response that I received was that all of the disciplinary histories, it said, I have provided all disciplinary history on file from the division for all candidates. If no documents were provided for specific candidates, then no disciplinary history exists. So that's the official response that we got back from Commander Carney. So my understanding is that if they don't have disciplinary records, then that means that there's nothing on file for them.
And then do you want to go over what else we've received in terms of collateral materials?
I'm just going off the top of my head, but we received the disciplinary files. We got the, I guess like resume, cover letters. We got the scoring rubrics. We got, see if I can find this file. Just going to we got their resumes, their interview questions, the evaluators' scoring sheets, everyone that applied. And I'm just going off the top of my head. So that's what we got. I would think that the disciplinary file, the use of force would be in the
No, only
It's
that would
separate.
only be if they were disciplined for use of force.
so we might need to then request that.
Or it might not be in there at all, because
elapsed.
if the use of force wasn't a disciplinary issue, it wouldn't be a disciplinary file.
In the last 3 years.
Well, some of the records that we got, we have records that go back to 2013. So they didn't just send us stuff over the past 5 years. The things that we have are some are dated 2013, 2014.
Yeah, but specific, so I think because of the consent decree, I can't know for sure, but it's my understanding that they have to actually keep a log of all of the times of use of force, because that's the actual thing in the
Right.
consent decree.
The force review board.
Yeah, so it might not have been that there was an issue or they did something wrong. It's just how many times they used it and what was those occurrences that an officer engaged in use of force.
Okay, so that kind of, I think, goes over what we currently have. There are two pieces to what we need to do. One is community involvement and one is an interview with the commanders. So what would you guys like to discuss first?
This proposal is about the interview, or is it about the community part?
It's about,
Maybe we're gonna do that first.
yeah, let's do that first also, then Shelley can hit on it. She needs to. Take it over, Shelley.
And so this is really just how we're looking to put this meeting together for the community so that they can have the involvement in the interview process as well. I reached out to Benevolent Love Ministries, where Pastor Pope is the pastor. She has agreed to host this meeting. They've recently added a community, in addition to their church, for housing or hosting community meetings. It is in the 4th District on Miles Avenue. And I think they just had a big community meeting with the police there, where Interim Commander Valentino was present. And lots of community organizations came to that meeting, including Jan and Adriana from the CPC, and they said the meeting went very well. And so, and recommended that we, try it there. And Pastor Pope is in agreement. But what needs to happen is we absolutely need a date before we can do anything. She needs a date. She's saying yes, barring the date that we give her doesn't conflict with anything that her church has going on that day.
Did she give you any conflicts that they already have or dates that don't work for them? Okay.
Because I couldn't give her anything. I didn't know if we were gonna do it in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I didn't know. So we need a date. I need a date to put on flyers. We need a date to promote. We need a date. That is paramount. We need a date.
So I do have a question. How would we partner with scheduling with the police to ensure that they're able to, make scheduling arrangements if they need to with their staff and things like that? Have we considered that?
So once we kind of come up with a date, we reach out to them so we can make that date together. And that way it ensures that there are no conflicts on their end. So someone needs to reach out to the police. I'm happy to do that so that we can together come up with a date, and then we can reach out to Pastor Pope.
Yeah, I
And once
think we
we have that
probably
date.
should reach out to ensure and then probably coordinate.
Also, what are we thinking the format of this will be? So, do we want to hold our interviews publicly, or okay, and then is there an opportunity for community members to ask questions as well?
What I was, well, what I envisioned was that we would, sort of have it as like a forum, and then like we could have the candidates, and then we could maybe have some questions that we sort of maybe want to make sure that we have to do with like these particular items in the consent decree, and then it should be open to almost like a panel, like you almost have the residents be able to ask questions as well. I was thinking about it being formatted like that.
So the way I envision it is like we did the IG position where we probably can have it in person as well as hybrid, but they have specific questions and then they left like a small portion to open it to the community. Yeah.
And possibly we could have it where people can submit questions online in the event that people cannot make it.
So there are 22 applicants. Are we imagining that we?
So we
Yeah.
narrow that down.
Yeah.
They're gonna forward us their top 3 or 4, and then that will be who you guys will be interviewing.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was
We're not
thinking.
gonna interview all 22.
To the chair, you guys would narrow your list, right?
Yeah,
So
we
not
would
the
narrow it.
division.
Yeah.
So I think the idea was your committee does some kind of interview process itself first, right, before this meeting. So you actually need to plan two things. That can be done here. It's not a big deal, and it could be rolling. It could be multiple days for how you determine how many you want to interview. It doesn't have to be all 22. You could screen resumes first, then decide who you want to meet in person as a commission, then take your final number of candidates. It could be 3, it could be 2, it could be 5, however many you decide to this community, and that was the recommendation for how you build to this.
Next question. Okay.
Yeah.
So what if you guys end up narrowing down your people and then you interview them or whatever, and basically just what if you narrow down the people who you want to do this with, you end up having this thing and then this public thing, and then they choose a candidate that you didn't like even have the event with, just something to take into consideration. Do you know what I'm saying?
That would require us to have the community vote. Wait, are you talking about who chooses the candidate that we don't?
Okay, sorry. So I like the idea, but so you have meetings here, whatever it is, and you interview the candidates, and then you narrow down the candidates who you want to attend the, not 22, but however many to attend this public thing. You do the public thing, and then residents get to ask questions, et cetera, whatever. And then, but what if, say you have 4 people, I don't know, who are at that, and then the police end up, and then you make a recommendation, right? And then, and I'm assuming it's gonna be based on one of those 4 people, not one of the ones who wasn't invited. You I don't know, I'm figuring. And then you recommend one of those people, or even if it's whoever of those 4 people, and then the police end up selecting somebody who's not among those people who were there at the public event. Yeah.
Then they have the right to do that because
Yeah,
the mayor has appointing authority and we've done our duty.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think under a best case scenario, if we gave the mayor 4 quality people that the community was happy with and we was happy with it, hopefully they would choose one of those 4 people.
Remember, there's 2 vacancies.
Right.
2 vacancies.
So 4 for each vacancy?
We just was using the number 4.
So
Okay.
the division didn't differentiate. They took 22 applicants for 2 positions, right? So then they just figured out who do we like best for what position and made recommendations. You could see it in the memo. They parsed them out. They interviewed them all. And then they said, well, we like these ones for this and these ones for this.
Well, it also speaks a little bit to Lou's thing about specific to, it speaks a little bit to Lou's point about specific to, why did they determine that, was the idea that this person would be good, better suited for this district or better suited for another one? And then, anyway, I don't know if that makes sense what I just said, but yeah.
Richard.
So sorry to continue her thought. I'm glad you saw that was an issue. That's why I pointed that out earlier. Lots of time, the department, the way in the past, without a commission, the way they assign the positions, sometimes you really don't see a solid logic to it. Of course, when they make the announcement, they will say their reasons. But actually, later you will see the people they pick may not really be the best fit. And we, community, and even other employees in the city, they can tell there are other people bypassed. Those people may be a better fit. That's why I do appreciate the commission will make the effort trying to increase the possibility for the right fit to get to the right position. But to Kayla's point, how about if eventually they point to somebody who are not the ones we put through interviews and public events, whatever? In that case, what kind of position the commission should take? Yes, in the charter, mayor has the authority to appoint a person. But for the independence of this commission, if you are existing to make recommendations and you go through a very good solid process to show the ones throughout this process will give mayor you the better fit or the best fit, then why aren't you taking the advice? So I think the important part will be commission has to prevent this situation happen. So you also need to decide if this happens, what response you will have immediately.
So I would love to, because Sergeant Jackson came in late, but I also just I love the feedback, but also I want to just make sure that we're able to get through the work that we need to get through. So I think I'm going to limit public comment after that. Fine.
I don't even need to be making comments, just like posing things to consider. But obviously they are.
Thank you. So actually, this part of 115.5, I actually wrote this part myself.
It's on.
It's on.
So in the mindset, what we were all thinking with this was that ultimately, you were going to be able to write the GPOs for evaluations, period, across the board with command staff, detectives, supervisors, what have you. In doing that, there would be the community component built into the new evaluations, which would be part of their grading system, so that you would see as you go about every day what they're doing, not just what they're doing at promotional time. Additionally, I wanted to also address, I think you may have said something about they're going to do what they're going to do and we're going to basically be responding afterwards. I don't think if that's the best choice. I do like what I'm sorry, Martin, what he was saying was that you do need to have a process that will be ongoing. While I like this for a first time to have a big community situation, I do think that you need a regular rolling process because these people are going to be retiring. They're going to be moving on to other parts. And so you're going to constantly have this going on. So you just need one system that works all the time. Another thing, the issue of getting the documents that you need regarding, use of force and what have you. I like what Commissioner Alana was saying, Garrett Ferguson, I'm sorry, ma'am. She was correct in that one of the things that we put in there was about how many uses of force they had. Just because they didn't have a use of force that was in violation of the rule doesn't mean that having all the time use of forces is still something that we want, just because they didn't get put up on charges for it. So that was something that we were looking at as well. So I was thinking that while this is a good start for this first one, you should be looking more so to look at your evaluation system, look at what they have and realize that the consent decree is the floor and not the ceiling. You have the power under 115 to make your evaluations what you want it to be. And so they will have to come to you. And if they decide not to give you the documents that you need, then they don't get their promotion until they do, because you can't make your evaluations until they give you what you need. So that part I wouldn't really worry about as far as getting the documents, as long as you make sure that you tell them, this is what we have to have. And in the meantime, you can go interim. Also, don't be put into a rush. They have the system in place that we've had for decades. It's called the acting commander position, acting lieutenant, acting sergeant, whatever you have, whatever position you need someone for. We always make an acting position. So most of the people who you're going to see here, that 22, some of them were already acting for one of these two positions anyway. So don't worry about having to rush to get someone named full time. There's always somebody already doing that job. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just
So
to,
I would like to make a comment.
oh, go ahead.
So I would like to say that I would like to echo what staff member Shelley said. I like the idea of really narrowing down because we have to consider that they have different like obligations and just jobs. And I wouldn't want to interview for a position if I wasn't even in the top 5 to even get the position. So I really like the idea of narrowing it down based on what we review. And 2, additionally with scheduling especially, it's going to be difficult to do 1, let alone 2 for like I understand the time commitment, but we want to ensure that we're still considerate.
Thank you. And to reiterate, we talked about this earlier in the meeting, but we are kind of looking at this committee that we will be establishing on Wednesday. A hiring committee, whether it's a permanent committee or an ad hoc committee, kind of yet to be seen. That will be going through this current round to make recommendations, but also looking at the process generally to see, do GPOs need to be made that address the commander hiring process, and what recommendations do we need to make to the division based on what we see as we go through this process. So thank you for the comment. So let's go through this kind of step by step of what, do you have something, Shelley, before we do that?
I just want, and I can appreciate what Sergeant Jackson had just said, you don't have to be in a rush because people are already in those appointments or positions. But I don't want to drag it out. So if we can start thinking about, a date within the next 6 to 8 weeks. Because everybody's calendars get full, get busy, and we have a lot of collaborating to do in order to pull this event off. So we start reaching out to people so that we can coordinate and get our schedules together.
So maybe we put kind of our goal timeline of 6 to 8 weeks for this process, or are you guys thinking something different?
I think it's hard without having a framework for a numerical number. Yeah. So I guess in my head, I just use a calculator. I think it's always good practice to move forward with at least like the top 30% of your candidates. So that would at least be between 3 to 6 people. So understanding that like after the initial round, we go through all 22, we have 6 candidates left. So between 3 to 6 candidates is what we would want at this event. And I think just having that number can help with us thinking of what the date could be, because then it kind of sets up like, that means it's 3 to 6 different police officers that we're going to try to find a time with. And then also looking at what for that district, are there specific days and times that are not as maybe busy as other times, if they do have a little bit more flexibility? Would that be like the Saturday morning type time? Like, I think just looking at, we don't have that information, but I think if we can try to like use some inference around like what are typically good days, like Saturday morning is not always a lot going on. If there's like another day through the week, like a Wednesday or a Thursday. Also looking at in that district, when are their actual monthly community meetings, and see if we can talk to them about that's Wednesday. In 4th district? Okay. So we can ask, it's the same as our CPC. So we can even ask, do we want to do a special, have this take place, right, in the lieu of one of our commission meetings? Because if we know that is there, and I say that only because if we want to get this done in a timely manner, 6 to 8 weeks, we know that for the most part, that's the time that most of them have already committed to. And not that we would do this every time, but just for this, maybe looking at one of the proposed dates will be their time, and in lieu of them having their meeting and in lieu of having their hours, we would have this instead. So those are just a couple of things I was thinking to help like frame the conversation of the thing, if that was helpful.
That's great. So I was thinking we go through kind of step by step what this process needs to look like. So what I'm understanding is step one is the review of all 22 candidates. And what I wanted to do is go through what are the materials that we need to review it, and then who is going, and then I want to ask then who's going to review. So one of, obviously resumes and cover letters, disciplinary records, use of force.
And the rest of these are.
Do you want, are we thinking from a certain time period, from across the person's entire career? I don't know what use of force reporting looked like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. There wasn't really, yeah. So that they started having an actual use of force report.
No, I thought for this was relevant under consent decree for the last 3 years, but maybe that was for this about.
Yeah.
I would probably look at maybe the last 3 to 5 years.
Maybe 5 years. Okay.
Hopefully they would send us that way.
Last 5 years. Okay. And then, so notes from interviews, or I guess, notes from interviews that were conducted.
Previous rubric scoring.
You have all that.
Yeah, no, we're just saying like what all we would need
Yeah.
to review. You're just making a list.
I'm
of
just
everything.
making a comprehensive
Okay.
list. Yeah.
So the rubrics we would need to
Yeah, the
review
rubrics,
those.
notes from interviews, rubrics. Anything else?
We have not, so she's
No,
going through this.
we're talking, we're going step by step. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so first step is just the review of the 22 candidates based on where we're gonna choose, then who we interview for our interview, which is then how we would determine who's gonna go to that community event. So, is there anything else we would need in order to do this review? Okay, so,
Ms. Benito, you would need something to, what are you evaluating against? So you don't have a rubric or
Yeah.
anything to assess a resume?
Yeah.
So what they use, they don't even tell you what they use, they just have that memo, and then they have their interview questions. My suggestion would be you develop something around the consent decree standards, as like Richard said before. You could go above and beyond that, but you have to at least have a minimum to check a resume against what the consent decree says. All leadership must be promoted, and that's 318. So if you were to develop a check sheet based on, do you see these, criteria plus any other you decide to add?
I think the
So-
consent decree
That's
breaks
for
down
interview.
every position.
Oh,
Yeah, the consent decree says for leadership, I think in 318, it's on the table
Like
there.
it breaks down each commander position.
So, in addition to all of these materials that we have, which include one that we need to request, which is use of forces from last 5 years, we would also need a rubric for how we're gonna evaluate those. And then what are people imagining in terms of who does this? Is it just the committee members? Is it all commissioners? Is it?
for the initial one, I would think committee members.
Yep, okay.
And then after that, if people want to weigh in on like our top 6 or something, they're more than welcome to, look or ask and review a rubric.
So, and we're thinking approximately top 6 then would go to the next step, which is commission interviews. And so for that, the steps we would need is we would need to create interview times for ourselves. Probably try to have a few blocks of time that are across different schedules. We would need to, reach out to the candidates for scheduling, and then we would need, are we imagining that the interviews are only done by committee members? Are we opening it up to other commissioners, community members?
I'll see commissioners. I mean, committee.
Committee members, okay. Okay. And again, this committee hasn't been formed yet. It could be comprised of the people here, it might not be. It'll depend on who's interested. So then we'll need a rubric. Oh wait, you already created a draft of a rubric, but we'll need a rubric for that. And we will need, interview questions.
And the goal will be to leave that with the top 3 to 4 that we want to present to the community. how
Yeah.
that sits.
Yeah, and then we would also then need to schedule a meeting to discuss those interviews. And to then, we would also need a meeting to discuss the narrowing down from unless we just want to say that we take the top scores, but probably we'll need a meeting to after the end of step one. So a meeting for discussion of then narrowing down to, approximately 3 to 4. And then we get to the community event, which it sounds like what we would do is have some questions that we ask, and then also there would be space for community members to ask questions as well. And then my understanding, so we'd have that event, and then what I'm imagining is then the committee would meet again to discuss all of that information and make a recommendation to go to the full commission.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
And I think at any point, because I'm guessing, and that could just be a room for even when we introduce this on Wednesday, because I can see how there might be times where we have 22 applicants or 50 applicants. So at any time, if like capacity is needed, we need additional commissioner support, we can always ask.
Yeah.
The commissioner can always volunteer and say, hey,
Yeah.
for this commander or next week, if it's something else, like I'm going to help because there's 50 applicants.
right, just like we did with grants.
Yeah, just like we did grants.
Okay, so essentially, in terms of trying to get back to the question of when the community event would be, and then also how long we might need to take this process, prior to this event, we will need to have reviewed all of the candidates, developed a rubric, reviewed all the candidates, had a meeting to narrow it down. We would need to then have conducted interviews, had a second meeting, and then to narrow that down, and then have the event. So how
45 days. 45 days.
45 days? Okay. So hosting the event.
Out to the event.
Okay. So that would be around the time frame of, I think, mid-May.
That means by the end of May, we will have 2 recommendations for the commission and the mayor.
So if we do the event first couple weeks of May, then we can vote on the recommendation. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Sorry. I was looking at the calendar, didn't hear you. Okay, yeah. So,
So the 4th Wednesday in May would be when we would vote, and based off the vote, we would send the email to the mayor. But
Yeah.
And to help, I was just like semi-finalist and finalist. So you'll have 2 of those meetings that we can schedule out now. We can think to have the event within those first 2 weeks of May.
I think that sounds good to me.
Unless you want to have that option, if we need to have that option around the District 4 meeting. Like we want to, if like they're like, we can't do anything else 2 weeks, the other option would be the 4th Wednesday of April to do the community event then, or to do it that 4th Wednesday of May. That's just like an option if we can't find any other time.
And we also have to keep in mind that we're doing 2 positions. So
Right.
there's gonna be 2 groups,
Mhm.
right?
No.
Yeah, because there's the Bureau of Special Services and there's District 4, so those have to be 2 different.
Right.
Like-
That's what he was saying. It wasn't like that when the city did it. They just interviewed everybody and then decided. who
Yeah.
was here and vote there.
Yeah, so we would essentially just choose like the,
Okay. I
Yeah.
thought maybe.
That's when we're talking about it. We're like, oh, these are 2 people who will be good for BSS.
Yeah.
These will be 2 for this district. Yeah.
okay, so Executive Director, would you mind compiling a list of dates in the first 2 weeks of May where there's not currently a scheduled commission meeting? I know that there will be likely more scheduled in the future, but as of right now. And then
Include a Saturday morning.
include a Saturday morning, and then maybe let's send that list to Shelley to reach out to
District 4.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Is Shelley still here?
Yep.
Okay.
We also have.
Did you hear that? So we're compiling a list for his first 2 weeks of May, and then he'll send it to you for you to run that by. Cool.
And I will say Saturday mornings have been horribly poor attended, so it would have to be late morning, like every meeting we've ever done on a Saturday morning has been almost nobody. So there's a time like later in the later morning, like maybe 11-ish to 1 or in the afternoon.
Alana's suggestion about having it with the commanders, meeting, because it's already out there, we already have our crowd there, that works.
And then we could always reschedule.
Because normally they call for speakers ahead of time and they have a meeting, so that's the
We
only.
can ask them for May, so we'll push it out to May and ask them if if the fourth Wednesday in May is the one that we can do. And then we can ask our meeting on Wednesday if the full commission will allow us to forego our meeting.
So if it's May, so there's a whole list of how we need to get the word out and how we need to get it out.
And we'll have to work on that, because I do think there have been some conflicts and issues raised about if we do it at the meeting where Valentino is the interim, it is kind of,
Yeah.
you give him a leg up. It's the people that he's been interacting with for months, and so I think there is a problem if we do the 4th District Commanders meeting, which Valentino has been running for months. As our avenue for, I think we should have a separate and independent, our own meeting, free from them. We can invite, certainly we could go to the commanders meeting and promote our meeting if it's around the same time and encourage everyone there to come and attend. But I think we're in a gray area there, because that's technically Valentino leading that meeting, and we would be a guest at his meeting, which would be bizarre.
Yeah, I agree. And I have some reservations about moving our full commission meeting, just because we've been struggling to get through things, but
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Jason's gonna send you dates, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of then, so I've kind of like written out these steps. What I can do is I can type these up and put it as like a little proposal, and then in Wednesday's meeting, we're gonna want to create. Do people have thoughts about creating, making a motion to create a full, like a permanent hiring committee that would handle this plus other positions? That's kind of what I'm leaning toward, or during that. Okay, cool.
I
So
can make that motion.
you want to? That would be great. And then I think that we can reach out to commissioners and see who's interested in serving on that. And then and so maybe we can divide up commissioners to reach out to and just ask, or we can just ask in a meeting who's interested.
We could ask in a meeting.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so you're gonna make that motion.
I'm gonna include all the steps that you put as part of the motion as well.
I might not, because we're establishing a hiring committee first, and then
You know, sometimes we put,
Where-
whereas the hiring committee would do the following.
right. Except what I don't want.
Steps is just for this. though.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying, is if we
okay.
put that in there, then we're locked in to do this every time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what I was thinking is we can just type this up as just like a little proposal and share it with the full commission. Full commission can give feedback if they think something needs to be different. Or what we can do is, once the hiring committee is established, we can just give it to the hiring committee and say, here you go, this is something you can.
That's exactly what I was thinking,
Yeah.
was the recommendations, they're not even recommendations coming from the official committee,
Yeah.
right? Because one doesn't exist.
Right.
So if everybody gets put, that's sitting here at this table got put on the committee, then just be like, okay, my next motion is recommend the recommendations of the committee, and here they are. But if there are additional people that are added, or no one's from here is on there, you can literally do what Commissioner Benito is saying and just turn over the list. Like,
Yeah.
hey, here's what this ragtag group of commissioners came up with as, possibly good
Yeah.
things, take it or leave it. But just also know you're kind of on a deadline, so.
Yeah.
So can we just type it up and have it written as a secondary motion just in case?
Yeah.
Do you,
But I don't understand what we gotta approve these steps, because
we
normally.
don't have to approve it.
Oh, okay. So this is not being approved in a motion.
When you work on
We
this,
can make motions.
So I
No,
guess
so
I'm
she
trying to
was saying that
understand.
this process, the way this is outlined is just for this particular thing.
Right.
I will say, anytime we do, like we open something, we have like a whereas the hiring committee can do such and such. And I can put like whereas the hiring committee will conduct interviews. They'll look at resumes, they'll request documents, but it wouldn't be as detailed on a timeline structure as this, because this is particular for this particular project, and that would mean, so what we're saying is, Commissioner Benito is gonna type that up as a secondary, document, and so, let's say all of us end up being on that committee or whatever, then someone can make a motion and say, I will make a motion that we accept these recommendations, and we have copies for everyone at the meeting to look at. But that's secondary, that's not this motion, that's just gonna.
I think what Adriana is asking is, do we even need to make a motion for this?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't believe, that's what I'm saying, I don't believe we need to make a motion specifically for these steps, because we may add something or delete it, and once you put it in a motion, it's gonna be finalized. And we don't want it to be finalized yet, because we're not really firm on the process, it's a draft.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You don't need to make a motion to say this is how this committee is going to work, especially when you're trying to just address this single issue. So if the training committee, once it's appointed, wants to come back and say, okay, well, we would like for our official processes to be adopted, handle that at a different time.
And you may want to consider the wisdom of Mr. Jackson, who had suggested that you also include in this the performance evaluation process. So currently, the division has shared with us, and it's part of the consent decree, the performance evaluations for patrol officers, sergeants, and I think captains maybe. I'm not 100% certain. They may have shared everything up to commander at this point, but we've had it since January, and I think the only commissioner who's shown interest in it so far is Adriana. So if Adriana, if you're planning on serving on this committee anyway, it does tie into the work, and we need a committee to be assigned this work because it's been sitting in stasis for now. So it's just a suggestion that this may be, if this committee is committed to this, it's natural to also look at how do we evaluate officers for future promotions, right? So just an idea. If you're going to make this motion, that you may want to consider including that in the umbrella, that this committee also looks at issues around officer performance and promotion performance in the future.
So what if we
And I can draft it and send it to you guys.
Great. What if we call it the Hiring and Performance Evaluation Committee?
That's long. Performance and hiring.
Performance and hiring, love it. Okay, so
Should that go
Go
on the
ahead.
agenda that way?
Yeah, it'll be a motion.
I'm saying, is that how you want it on the agenda?
yeah,
The performance and hiring?
to a motion to establish the performance
Okay,
and hiring committee.
so we're not going to amend the duties of the hiring committee. We're gonna make this a performance and
So
hiring
that's an
committee.
ad hoc committee specifically for the executive director, so it's separate.
So this would be a standing committee, but
Yeah.
they won't necessarily have to meet regularly.
I mean, the other thing is, I don't know if this is just putting too much on it. We could also make the recruitment, retention, performance, and hiring committee.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm already working with recruitment for policy, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
If I'm on this committee, it makes sense because that's the thing that I told Van Leer that I was interested in. So we can add recruitment, retention.
Okay, so
Okay, I'm gonna caution us against that. I think
Okay.
maybe later, but right now, I
Okay.
think we need to focus. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
You don't think recruitment and retention should be under the same committee as hiring and performance? I just think they all go together.
I just think it's too much for the committee. It's like now we're taking something very particular and now it's becoming, I don't know.
I don't know where else would sit, because right now recruitment is sitting under.
I think recruitment should go, in my opinion, I think recruitment should go under outreach.
I think that my suggestion is gonna be that we know that we have these two things that we definitely need to do. And then I think once that committee is formed, then they can discuss if we wanna add more things to that committee.
Okay, so right now it's just performance and hiring.
that's what's right now.
Okay. There will be another opportunity for public comment at the end. I know we got some people who are excited to make some public comments. So, but just so that we can move through this. So, so for now on the agenda, if we could please have the establishing of the hiring and performance committee. We Thank you, Commissioner Garrett Ferguson, for drafting that, motion. I will type this up and send it to everybody. I think one question is, do we want to give this to send it to all the commissioners and say, hey, just FYI, here's a process if you want to give feedback, or do we just want to then hand it to the people who are on this committee?
I think it shows good faith if we type it up, print it out, and have it, give it to people during the meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm good with that. Okay. So I'm going to try to type that up tonight. Adriana, or sorry, Commissioner Rodriguez, would you be willing to make a request to the executive director for record request for previous evaluations for the candidates and also uses of force from the last 5 years?
Co-chair Adams did do the use of force.
Oh, great. Would you mind doing another one for evaluations?
This just has to go through a formal.
Yeah, we have to, I
just
think we
an
have to
email,
like
it's
make a
fine.
written record of it.
What are we adding to this request?
So the use of the force from the last 5 years, and then do we want to ask for a previous evaluation, previous performance evaluation?
For all the candidates for committee.
So, for, in terms of next steps beyond that, I mean, another thing that would probably be good for people to start looking at is, creating this rubric for the evaluation, but because we're not the committee, maybe that we just, hand what we've done so far off to the committee, we got the ball rolling, but that's probably something that, but if you guys know that you want to be on the committee,
I plan to be on the committee.
I'm gonna want to be on the committee.
I am not gonna plan to be on the committee,
Oh,
so
okay.
I love that. My goal was to help us get the ball rolling, and
You are great at delegating.
Yeah.
I was Mr. Benito.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I would say, Commissioner Rodriguez did such a great job with taking the lead with creating the
that's what I was thinking.
interview rubric.
Sure.
If you want to make a draft of the rubric for this.
Sure, that sounds good.
Great.
Keep this moving.
Yeah. If we are in a place where like truly nobody else wants to be on the time committee, I'm willing to step in, but my preference would be to not serve on this committee. I'm a little committed out right now, but yeah, but I think you guys are going to do an amazing job, and if needed, I can help out. But so my job is to type this up. I'll try to do that tonight. Is there anything else that we should discuss? We have looking at the dates.
I just have a question for interim director. I know Shelley left. I wanted to get some clarity around the $700 figure for mailers and businesses and residents, just where that dollar amount came from. Will we be using a union printer, and where do we get our addresses from?
So all of our, we have in-house printing in City of Cleveland, so everything comes out of City of Cleveland print shop. And they're very good. So we can, and they already have mailers at the city for everything we want to. So if we were to do mailers, we can definitely try that. Our mailers are, I think Ryan left, but we have very little success. We've only ever done a mass mailer one time, and we had a tremendous amount come back as undeliverable. So if we do residents, we're better off just seeing how we can go through the ward and use the ward's resources, churches, community groups, whatever. And if we may be able to get some community groups to agree to do door-to-door insertions in mailboxes and things in an area we're looking for. So, but yes, they will have a Ward 4 mailer already at the city. We can just do that. We can use whatever, and we can also ask the council people for their mailing lists and do it that way.
Okay, yeah,
So,
that was my.
but the money comes from in-house printing, so we don't have to go to bid, we don't have to do any of that. It doesn't matter how much it costs, we just send it right to printing.
Okay, and for the record, if we get volunteers, they will not be putting mailers in the mailbox because that is illegal.
Yeah, okay.
So you cannot put things in a USPS mailbox, but you can put them on the banisters and other places. Just want
Understood.
So, yeah, I was just to kind of go off that, like, I need to emphasize how ineffective that mailing campaign was. Of the 47, close to 4,800 mailers that we sent out. We got 10 back. Because it was full of survey out and sent it back. We got 10. No, 11. Yeah, it was 7. It seems to sort of be a. I mean, this is just an announcement, though, so it might not be as as much energy involved as actually writing something down. But yeah, it's tricky.
It was very effective at supporting USPS.
Yeah, we can, we can also ask, because I know multiple wards are in District 5, we can ask if, for the council people who do their like monthly newsletters and stuff, if we can put this event in their newsletter and their mailer things that they send out.
And we talk about often advance notice, but we're not very good at doing it because we never have something far in advance plan. We end up finalizing dates in 2 weeks ahead of something, and then, by the time you get to print, that gives you a couple days to get information out typically. So the only thing I would suggest is if we really want to get attendance, and this is one of our most important events we've ever had, in my opinion, we need to have that date solidified at least 30 days ahead of when we're actually doing it, so we can really market for once, and have that 30 days to just get the word out, which I don't think we've ever had that. Maybe only a handful, because we're always chasing our tail and putting our dates within a very close window.
And even though it feels like, to me, May feels like a long time away, it really is just a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
I know, it's like, what is happening? Yeah.
And even if you don't know you could come up with a date and try and stick to it of when you're going to do this public event, and you could notify all those 22 candidates now that they may not be invited, but they should hold that date and time now, right? So that way they can plan in their own minds in advance if they're a candidate to have that date ready.
I would say that I do think that the hiring committee should meet probably pretty shortly in the next couple weeks. So. Okay, is there anything else? Go ahead.
Do you want me to send out that notice to them that they should be looking, that, that they may not get interviewed, but we are planning to hold those interviews in the first week of May? Do you want me?
So, no,
We asked for.
the event is,
Well, Shelley, I'm just saying that notice is not.
well, so there's 2 sets of interviews. Are you referring to the community interview?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just to-
Jason's gonna compile a list of available dates and send it to Shelley. So, if we can try to get that date locked down this week, that'd be great. And then I think it would be good for you to send that notice out.
But you also don't even know who your committee is yet and how fast they can work. So I would just say, let them meet first, let them pick a date, and then we'll get it out.
Yeah. I think it would also be good for us to notify all the candidates, or for the hiring committee to notify all the candidates of what the process is gonna look like, just because, and that we're doing this, and that they can expect to hear from us, as we narrow.
And you can ask them if they're still interested. Some may withdraw, and then you'll have less to.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Okay,
Actually, that might be one of the first things to do. Because
Yeah.
if they want to withdraw
Yeah.
their application, then it's not a good use of our time if they eventually are going to say they don't want to do it. So that might be like the first thing that we do, even before we review anything. Reach out to them and ask if they're still interested.
And we can have Brian. We can do that through Brian. We can just do that. Just confirm interest.
okay, great. Okay, let's do one more round of public comment, and then we'll adjourn. Well, I guess we're not adjourning because it's not a meeting.
So, 2 things. Okay, so first thing, oh God, my brain. Sorry. Okay, all right. So the first thing is when it comes to issues of discipline, excessive use of force, these sorts of things, and asking for like 3 to 5 years or whatever it is. I think something to keep in mind, and I'm not an expert on who can even apply for this position, frankly, but there is like a chance that somebody's been sitting in an office for the last 5 years, but when they're actually on the street, they do all types of stuff. And so, and yet they've been, it's been a privilege that they've been able to be off the street, not interacting with the public, let's say, just for example. And so as a result, you could end up with, they have no, they have no examples of discipline, they have no examples of excessive use of force, that sort of thing. So, and then versus having somebody who's on the street, who maybe is a really highly qualified candidate, but then ends up kind of looking not so great because they have more examples of these sorts of things when they're interacting with the public, when they're interfacing with the public. So that's one thing I think to take into consideration. And it's a kind of complicated one because, and this speaks to my second point, which is one of the things that I have, been on repeat of it about the past couple months has been like, defining like, what is a committee for, et cetera. But more specifically, like this is how I understand this. The policy committee is for creating future policy. The, let's say, accountability committee is for interacting with the policy as it presently exists. The thing that you guys are talking about now is sort of a little bit of an in-betweener, right? Because you're currently dealing with a thing where you're needing to be providing these recommendations, but you kind of have the ability to like ask for certain things, and you're not changing the policies that the division is using or the city is using for their appointments exactly, but you can establish more of your own process. So just, I don't unfortunately at this off the top of my head, maybe others do have a suggestion of what would be a better way to ask for stuff like, these discipline records or use of force records. So I'm not actually, unfortunately, suggesting what a solution is for this, but right. So that's one thing. But and I guess to the other point would be, So I was thinking like, okay, the hiring committee again is a kind of an in-between thing where you're establishing like the matter of evaluations or this sort of thing. You are looking at pre-existing things, but you're trying to establish what would be more effective policies moving forward. And then you're simultaneously potentially then applying that. So that's more like policy committee realm. But then you're also applying it, which is more like accountability committee style. I just mean style realm where you're. So just something to keep in mind, I think, as I keep beating this drum of like, labels for containers, so that we're understanding what we're doing in that respect. So those two comments. Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah.
Just to piggyback off what she was saying, I really like what you were saying, Mr. Co-Chair. I think that's the very first thing you need to do is find out of the 22 who still wants to be a part of the process. Then the very next thing that you should do to satisfy what she was saying was to actually ask the candidates, please submit to us the last 5 years you were working the street. Once you have that, then and only then will you ask Kearney for the discipline records for their 5 years, the last 5 years they were on the street. And then you can evaluate how many use of forces they had the last 5 years they were on the street, because more likely than not, the people who are going to be applying haven't been on the street in quite some time. Even the person who gave you your discipline, when he was doing your discipline training, told you he hasn't been on the street in 20 years. So you don't know what he was like before he was hired. And so you probably need to know all these things before you put someone in these high elevated positions for them to have influence on others who do have to work the street.
And I just want some clarity around that point here for everybody. So that is in the consent decree. The original consent decree fought for 10-year look back on discipline, including use of force, right? And it was for promotional purposes. But what they asked for is to change the collective bargaining agreement, which was at 3 years, I think, at the time. So they never got to the 10 years. So right now, I think it stands at 5 was the compromise, if off the top of my mind, right? But that's it. But that's it. Is it 7? Yeah. So they never got to as far back as they wanted to go from when I first started here. But at the end of the day, it doesn't apply to you guys, right? You can do a full career look back because you're not where it's a collective bargaining agreement issue, and I believe it was only the CPPA that had it in there, right? So you're talking about that very first promotion that is a civil service test, that is a very structured process where you test, you go through a promotion, right? And they were limiting how far you could look at an officer's history in that specific process in their collective bargaining. I don't think it applies to mayoral appointments like the chief or commanders. So you can look at the whole career if you so choose. I don't want people to believe that we have some legal standard where we can't look back. We can look back as far as we like for discipline history all the way to day one. You can also look at use of force all the way to day one. If you choose to limit it, that's up to you all.
And there's a difference when we put in writing, look back on the street versus just look back on their careers.
Right.
We should phrase it.
You want their street time, because
Street
some of them only do, a probationary time, which is 6 months after you get out, for the first 6 months after the academy. There've been a lot of people, or some people who have done 6 months, after their 6 months in the academy, you have a probationary period. Once you've completed that, then some people get automatically put in places where they're no longer on the street, and that's where they remain for most of their career, while they have the chance to study and so on and so forth for promotional things at that point. So I do agree with Jason that for the command staff, and specifically the command staff, you do have the ability to look at whatever you want and make that the, whatever, however you want to do it.
For clarity, just to ask Richard, so for clarity here, are you saying you're suggesting to them that they would ask the candidates for the year, just to give them the years that they were on the street, and then ask Commander Carney for records during that time? Or was that, did I understand that? Or
I think you
was
could just ask it in the same question. You could say, we are requesting the last 5 years from the time that an officer was last on the street, the last 5 years prior to that of use of forces. That way we're not asking a question and then making a record request. We can just say, that's what we're requesting.
The last 5 years on the street time.
Okay. So not asking the candidate, but just going straight to Carney and asking.
Okay, we can, if you guys have further comments, you can always continue to, reach out to commissioners, email, talk to them, but one more public comment.
Thank you. Okay, now, I'm glad I waited for the last, because all these three people already said something, I had either question marks or I am support partially. From my point of view, there are two layers of today's meeting. Martin mentioned, our lawyer, Martin mentioned earlier, it will be too troublesome for every kind of position hiring, you have a committee. However, since you guys today are pretty focused on this, I actually suggest we can have just one hiring committee doing two type hiring work at least. Today, what you establish here will be the hiring for any position inside the police force. You can have established another system to hire somebody working for the commission, for example, lawyer, or some other position on the way from time on. However, once goes into the police hiring, I would say I will go more of Jason's and Richard's idea, because that was my idea. The higher the position that is, actually these people will influence how all the officers on the ground, how they work, how they be disciplined, fairly, not fairly, and this and that. So I actually think that for these higher positions, I think you should just straight ask for the whole lifetime record. Because right now we do have some officers sitting at a desk already, but they do not have the same amount of years as some other people who have been sitting for a desk job longer time. So their time on the street probably is 5 years ago. For some of the people applying certain position, their last time on the street probably is 15 years ago. So instead of making so many numbers, later you give them the excuse saying, oh, they cannot collect the information because they make a mistake on your requirements. Just ask for a lifetime record. In that case, you will see the most comprehensive ones, and the general public will have a chance to understand, because I vividly remember our last meeting last year, the year in review. We had so many community members participating, they attended the meeting, right? I heard lots of them talking about when you have all these district commanders, all lots of different people coming in. Some of them actually start talking about these people with certain rank. Even they made a speech, introduced their district. They will say, maybe rumor, maybe fact. I wouldn't have time to verify that at the time. This guy did this how long ago. this guy did something how long ago. So on the same side, if we want to make sure the culture changed for the better, you probably should just ask for the full career record. So we will know, and you also can tell some of the people do deserve promotion because maybe at the beginning on the street, this person didn't do the job very well, making lots of mistakes. But actually throughout the years, based on record, you see this person improve. This person start complying all the rules without too much discretion to go offline. So you want to know how this person changes. So if this person changes enough to be in this higher position, today we are talking about commander, next time it could be something else. If this person really knows I should improve, and the record proves that this person is improving, by the time this person having desk jobs, this person actually is fair to subordinates, helping the people making big rookie mistakes, help them to correct that, and very considerate of their situations, their health, their family, all those things. Recommend, always encourage them to do certain get training, speak up, to have discussion. If you see this person have that kind of improvement, then probably the community will all agree this is the person we need to be sitting on the higher position in order to have this police reform actually going. Not just put everything on the paper for the formality. So that will actually help you guys to filter people, just as for the whole lifetime career record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great night.
Everybody, see you tomorrow.
Bye.
All right, Lou.
Thank you.
Are you packing up?
Yeah.
I gotta close off this real
Oh,
quick here. I wanna get out of here.